stop right here. Don't go any further and don't apply for that study program yet until you get to the bottom of what you really want to achieve. This video is actually not meant to be specifically on the topic, the subject of psychology, because this can apply in general too, but I want to use psychology as an example because I noticed that many people are highly interested in psychology and are seriously considering whether or not they want to go back to school to get a degree in this field. A disclaimer up front, I did not study psychology. I studied business administration, but I happen to be among many people who are extremely interested in the field of psychology, and maybe you are too, and that is why you're watching this video. Perhaps you are asking yourself at the moment whether or not you should study psychology. Psychology is an amazing field. It is so interesting. I love to read about it. I love to watch videos about it and listen to podcasts that are related to psychology and also personality. So I get it. I get why everyone is so interested in psychology. I think, and tell me what you think in the comments below, I think that a lot of people want to study psychology because they think that it will allow them to understand themselves better. And that is totally legit. The only question here is, does that warrant getting a second degree or maybe even a third degree in psychology and spending 3 to 4 years on it or not? And the answer is, again, it depends on what you want to achieve by getting that psychology degree. Selecting a field that you are interested in, let's say psychology here, is one thing, but the other thing to think about when we're talking about work and career is, what kind of activities do you like to do? What kind of things do you want to do on a daily basis? You might want to ask yourself, by taking this degree in psychology, is your goal truly that you want to become a psychotherapist and provide therapy to people? Or is what you want to do research? Do you want to research the field of psychology? And in that case, I would challenge you to ask yourself, what in particular are you interested about? Most people are super interested about personality types. We see that all over the internet. And I also love that. I love exploring and listening to videos about personality. But psychology is, of course, a very, very big field, and so are other fields. In case your goal is to do research in psychology, what exactly do you want to research about? One way to test yourself whether or not you really want to study psychology or law or biology or any other degree is to go and read a scientific research paper or a publication in that field. Because it's one thing to like reading blogs or reading popular literature about psychology, for example, or history, but it's a totally different thing if you have to read a bunch of scientific journals and research publications. So once you try to do that, get your hands on a scientific paper and dig into that, try to read through it, then you'll get a better idea whether or not you are really interested in that field or if you're only interested in it on a superficial level. And my goal here is not at all to underestimate anyone or to question anyone's intentions of getting a second degree, but I just think that it makes sense that if you're spending so much money and you're going to spend so much time and effort, 3, 4, or even 5 years to get a second degree, then it makes sense to pause and try to take a closer look at it and think about whether this is actually what you really want. I got a bit off track here, so let's step back again. I said earlier that it's one thing to pick a subject that you are interested in, but then the other thing is what kind of activities is it that you like to do and that you want to perform in your career and in your work in future. Let's look at psychology, for example. One thing that you could do related to psychology is, one, become a therapist, or you could also focus on research. And if any one of you watching right now has actually studied psychology, then please feel free to drop your comments below so you can add to the discussion. If you're thinking about getting a second degree in psychology, is what you want to do research or therapy, or do you perhaps have other goals that you are not that aware about yet? For example, the reason why you want to study psychology is perhaps because you want to understand yourself and your life and your past better and be able to make sense of it. Or the reason could be that you simply want to help other people who are going through very rough times or depression. You want to study psychology so you will be able to help them. It's a really good idea to dig a bit further here and find out what your true intentions are. Let's say that your true goal is that you want to help other people. You want to provide them advice and help them with their difficulties that they are facing in life. This can also be achieved through other means. It doesn't have to be a psychology degree. You can, for example, be a coach, a life coach, for example, which as far as I know is not regulated and it definitely doesn't require any specific degree. Or you could also think about starting an organization that focuses on solving a particular problem that many people face. Don't skip the step of finding out what you actually want, because once you find out what you truly want, then you might find out that you don't really need this degree. Let me share with you a personal experience, and here I want to open my cards. The reason why I studied business administration and economics earlier on was, among others, because I wanted to start my own business one day. So my assumption was that in order to start a business, then of course it makes sense to study business administration, right? Wrong. And let's go on to the second thing. The reason that I picked economics in the beginning was because I did not dare to follow my true interest, which was actually theater and yes, also psychology. Once I graduated from high school, I thought about studying psychology or even go into theater, but I honestly just didn't have the guts and I wanted to go for something safe. And that is the reason why I started with economics and I went on to business administration. And what was the result in the end? I didn't achieve what I actually wanted to achieve. I made false assumptions that I needed to get a degree in something to achieve something else. In this case, I wanted to start my own business. So of course, you might say having a degree in business administration, of course, the knowledge, the experience and connections there will help you in starting a business or doing something entrepreneurial. But the reality is that the most important thing to start a business is actually doing it to start a business. And in terms of knowledge that you need to start a business, nowadays you can find everything on the internet. Okay, I don't want to go into much more detail. Long story short, in the end, I did go into acting and I did become a film producer and produce 2 feature films. But that's a story for another time. So let's go back to the kind of activities that you would like to do in your work and in your future career that are related to psychology. Could it be, just entertain this thought for a moment, that your goal is that you want to be able to understand yourself and people better, and you are actually interested in self-help, in self-improvement, and in personal development, or in personality theory. If this is the case, then stop right here. Don't go any further and don't apply for that study program yet until you get to the bottom of what you really want to achieve. If you are interested in these things, self-help, self-improvement, personality development, personality types, etc., ask yourself if what you want to do is actually provide counseling and therapy and do research in psychology, or are you interested in it as an observer? Someone who is extremely enthusiastic about psychology, about personality types, and wants to write about it, blog about it, or even make videos about it. Even on YouTube, there are so many what I would say amateur psychologists who are extremely dedicated to this field, and they are actually scholars of psychology, as in they study psychology on their own time and they try to communicate their findings and what they think about it to the larger audience. Another really important thing to consider here: if you are interested in a particular subject, it doesn't automatically mean that you need to study it. And the reason is this: many breakthroughs and many discoveries in history have been made by people who were not directly engaged in that particular field, but who actually came from another field. So they looked at this field, let's say psychology, from the outside. The reason why many discoveries and inventions are made by people outside of a particular field is because they have the ability to think outside of the box. They do not think the same way that everyone else thinks in a certain discipline. They are able to see things from a different perspective, and that is exactly what enables them to make that breakthrough or discovery. Let me give you another example here. My background, as I told you, is in business administration, and I took an acting course, but it was only for a few months. So I wasn't really part of the film industry, and I didn't have much knowledge about how to produce a film film and filmmaking in general. But nevertheless, I managed to produce 2 feature films within 3 years, purely because I was so driven and I was so interested. In contrast to that, I know so many people who have a bachelor's degree in filmmaking or even a master's degree in it. They studied for 3 or 4 years, but even after 10 years, they didn't manage to crank out even 1 feature film. And I think the reason is that when you are so immersed in a particular field, sometimes you get closed-minded. Because you know so much about that field, you become scared of it. In a way, sometimes ignorance can be bliss. So before you make the final decision and get a second degree in psychology or in another field, ask yourself, what aspect about that field is it that you are interested in particular, and does it really warrant to get a second degree, or can you learn things by yourself? I hope you enjoyed this video, and do let me know in the comments below whether or not this video has helped you in your process of deciding to get a second degree. Have an awesome day. I wish you all the best in whatever you're trying to achieve, and I hope to see you again soon.